We all rely on farmers and ranchers, but farming is riskier than other businesses out there. Crop insurance helps farmers manage their risk. With crop insurance, farmers put skin in the game by paying premiums and shouldering deductibles. That keeps taxpayers from having to pick up the whole bill every time disaster strikes. Today, about 90% of U.S. farmland is insured, providing $100 billion in protection to more than 130 different kinds of crops. It's a testament to the program's success.
Thank you for joining us for our Agri-Pulse Washington Week in Review. I'm Spencer Chase, joined as always by Agri-Pulse Executive Editor Phil Brasher, discussing the week that was, agriculturally speaking, in Washington, D.C. And it was a busy one in Washington this week. It really was. We started off early in the week. The much anticipated presidential budget was released on Monday. As expected, saw a number of cuts to Department of Agriculture spending, including crop insurance. It's one of the more interesting exercises that happens here in Washington, whereas the president will release his negotiating perspective, and the Capitol Hill folks will say this is dead on arrival. So, Phil, we knew a lot of this that was going to happen. We didn't know the particulars, but really, what did we learn from Budget Day?
Not really a lot. Secretary Sonny Perdue had Agriculture Secretary Sonny Perdue, for those of you who may not know. The one or two people who are watching who might not know. Had said to us, a couple of weeks ago, to express some frustration that the administration was going to come in with another one of these budgets that was going to make deep cuts. He called it conservative. He said, I've done my best to advocate for producers with the White House and Budget Office, and his frustration was that he said, we're not really putting ourselves in a negotiating position with Congress when we propose these cuts that are just totally unacceptable on the Hill. But they get a lot of money, they save a lot of money, they help to pay for increases elsewhere in the budget, and so they get included every year. There are also some ideological reasons for some of these cuts. Talk about crop insurance, even a much bigger cut in SNAP food stamp program as well. All of these things, all these big money cuts that are in the bill would require reopening the farm bill that President Trump, if you'll remember, just signed into law 3 months ago. Right. With a big, you were there, Spencer.
Yeah, all kinds of Green Acres related fanfare.
How can we forget? At the White House. 3 months later, he proposes to gut a lot of what was in that bill.
Right, and there was the resurgence of the Harvest Box initiative for SNAP recipients. That'll I'm guessing. I hate to break from reporting into analysis.
We'll probably see it again next year.
We might see it again next year, and we might see the same level of success this year with it on Capitol Hill. I will welcome the opportunity to be proven wrong on that one, but
you won't be.
Yeah, saw a lot of things happen in relation to Budget Day, and another thing that's important to note, that really kicks off the appropriations process here on Capitol Hill, whereas it always says the president proposes and Congress disposes. Well, now Congress can start disposing.
Well, the real big thing that has to happen is Congress, the House, the Republican-controlled Senate, and the Democratic-controlled House have to come to an agreement on actually what they're going to spend for at least fiscal 2020. Presumably, they'll also try to do fiscal 2021, so they have a 2-year window where they know how much they can spend. Because really the appropriations committees, and that's what you're talking about, start this process of writing the individual bills for the departments, the agencies. They have to know what they can spend up to, what their caps are, before they can really write their bills. And so that's still to come.
Yeah. Another area where there was a lot of news this week was in the biofuels sector. Over at the Environmental Protection Agency on Tuesday, they rolled out their plans for year-round E15 sales, as well as a number of reforms to the renewable identification number market, the biofuel compliance credits that measure compliance with the RFS. Mixed reviews, I think we can say comfortably on that proposal. Obviously, the renewable fuel side, big fan of the fact that they would potentially have the ability to sell E15 year-round. EPA says they're going to try and get this rule done in time for the summer driving season, which kicks off on June 1st, when that ability would expire. But within the biofuel sector and the refining sector, important to note that there's far from unanimous support or opposition to a number of the things that the EPA is looking to do on the RIN market. The biofuel folks are looking to make sure that compliance can be achieved without causing downstream issues for their products. Refiners, some of them are making money under the current system and are big fans of that. And so, Phil, it's really developing to be it's no surprise that biofuels are an interesting political environment, but this week really underscored that.
Yes, it does. And the other thing it probably underscores is this rule, like everything other rule that's been issued in the RFS, is going to wind up in court. Mm-hmm. I think that was pretty clear. One side of the refining industry is not going to be happy.
Yep. And also another thing that happened this week on the biofuel space, this happened Thursday, the EPA announced another round of small refinery exemptions, or didn't necessarily announce them, disclose them would probably be a more accurate way to describe it. Went from 7 pending applications down to 2 on their SRE dashboard, and so they have granted 34 of the 37 applications for the 2017 compliance year, another 39 applications still pending for 2018. The biofuel sector obviously not happy with the fact that these SREs were granted, and the refining sector saying, this is the law. We've paid for a lot of legal fees to make sure that that these exemptions are enforced the way that the law says they should be. And so a continuing dilemma there. A number of statements from the biofuel sector yesterday mentioned their own continuing legal challenges to the SREs. But it's also important to note the previous exemptions that we saw were under former Administrator Scott Pruitt. The ones that we saw yesterday were under new EPA Administrator who had been in an acting role for a while, Andrew Wheeler.
Yeah, and we don't know what he's going to do for the 2018. All of those are still pending, right?
Still pending, and I imagine the biofuel sector legal challenges will have a big role in the decisions on that front. But before we let you go, we do want to just close with a brief item on something that happened earlier this week. U.S. Trade Representative Robert Lighthizer came up to Capitol Hill at the invitation of House Speaker Nancy Pelosi to speak to a number of House Democrats about what he sees in the USMCA trade deal, as well as what House Democrats would like to see out of the USMCA trade deal and some potential side letters thereof. And it's really an interesting thing, because if this administration wants to pass this trade deal, it's not going to do so without the approval of Nancy Pelosi and her caucus more broadly.
Right. And they don't have that much room for error. They've can't lose that many votes. They presumably get a lot of Republican votes, probably not all. And this was sort of the nudging the process, launching it away by the USTR coming to and meeting with the full Democratic caucus. Got a lot of questions, we're told. It's going to be a bit of a process going forward, and a lot of these Democrats are very much going to hold their fire until they have to take a position.
Right. A number of folks told us as they were leaving the room that they have not seen a whip count or a vote count from the Democratic caucus at this point on this measure, and so they're waiting to see, as are we, and as are all of you. And we'll be sure to keep you up to date on that subject. As soon as we know more, you will as well, because obviously that's an issue very critical to a number of our readers. But I think that's going to do it for this week. Certainly looking forward to seeing a number of you at our Ag and Food Policy Summit at the National Press Club on Monday. I believe there's still a handful of seats as of me speaking this sentence right now on Friday. So if you're interested, now's the time to jump on that. And if you can't make it to the summit, we sure look forward to seeing you at the reception afterwards. But Capitol Hill is on recess next week. We will not be. We will still be providing you with the same award-winning news coverage that you've come to depend on from Agri-Pulse. But I think that's going to do it for this week. So for Phil Brasher, I'm Spencer Chase. Have a good one.